will the central bank view this latest development and other issues as well that will be considered before it reaches its decision? And to give us insight into what the MPC decision may likely be for tomorrow, we have here Dubem Ara. He is an economist with financial derivatives company. Is on my left. Dubem, thank you very much for coming on the program. And to my far left, Chinedu Ifeonu. He is also an economist with financial derivatives company. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on the program.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to start with Dubem. Of course, the reports that was released recently by your company is very key, I want to say. And of course, one of the things that was stated there that we've seen inflation declining. What does that portend for us?
Well, the major policy stance for the CBN, especially, the CBN led by Sanusi, is to keep inflation low. And their target currently is to keep it within the 6% to 9% range. And they've been successful at doing it with a tight monetary policy stance. And going forward, that actually the 7.8% currently is the lowest inflation has been since March 2008. So that's a great success for Sanusi. And going forward, I think they're most likely going to try and keep it in that range. And for Nigeria, that's a good thing because obviously we've been able to get price stable. And for development to occur, it's one of the things that's good for development to occur is price stability. So going forward, I think that's good.
Okay, let me move over to Chinedu. What's your take on this inflation decline that we're getting right now?
Well, since you're seeing inflation decline to about 7.8%, I think you have to give the MPC as well as Sanusi and the CBN in general some credit because they've been putting in tight monetary policy controls in order to sort of stem inflation and keep it under control. That's their primary mandate in the first place. So, like the Debate mentioned earlier on, having prices under control, having some sense of price stability in the system sort of reinforces confidence from investors coming in. It also helps with development and individuals in making decisions going forward. So having us having a stable inflation rate is really good for the economy.
Both of you are giving kudos to Sanusi. But one of the things that a lot of people out there have talked about is the impact of this tight monetary stance by the central bank on businesses. They feel that the banks are not actually giving out credit as much as they should be giving this credit out because of this decision of the MPC to hold its interest rate and not losing its stance on that.
Right.
What do you have to say about that?
Well,
does that spell well for us as well?
If you're going to give anybody any fault to some extent, I'm not necessarily sure it's even any fault in the sense, but the IMF, for instance, is suggesting that there should be more clarity, more coherence in communicating monetary policies going forward. So if you're about to introduce some macroeconomic policy and there are some effects that could be pretty significant for the economy, then it's best you get that out there as early as possible to the stakeholders and have them reevaluate their businesses, restructure them to deal with the consequences of such policies. Now, I'm not saying the policies in any sense were not communicated with some level of clarity, but it's best they're done that way. Now, with regards to the banks, yes, they're complaining about there being some liquidity issues and problems. But at the end of the day, we are all impressed with the numbers. I'm impressed, you're impressed with the numbers, 7.8% at the moment. We've been suffering from high inflation for a number of years.
Because high inflation, let me get to the Ben.
Sure.
High inflation is one of the things that the central bank usually points out is, we have to hold on to this rate and not losing a stance. But we've seen some consistently we've seen a drop in that figure for the past few months, and the central bank is still saying, let's hold on to the monetary policy rates, let's keep our eyes on it, let's keep watching. For how long will that be, Dubem?
Well, one thing we have to point out is this is actually the last MPC meeting for the year. And obviously, first of all, there is a legacy that has to be left behind for the current members, and also Sanusi, who is about to exit. One of the legacy he would like to leave most likely is to have maintained a stable financial and monetary environment for the country, and also low inflation is something he said. But you have to realize that in the coming year, and the election season is coming up, and a lot of spending is going to take place, and that's going to add a lot to the inflation.
That's going to be over more than a year from now.
And also, but you also have to realize that AMCON is about to redeem, about to retire some of his debt towards the end of this year in December, I believe, and that's about to bring in about 2 trillion naira into the system. So if you factor that in, that 2 trillion is coming into the system, that's a lot of liquidity into the system that will cause a lot of inflationary pressure.
But the central bank has ways of containing those funds. Its monthly treasury bills auction is one of the avenues it uses, employs to ensure that not too much liquidity is left in the banking sector. Can't it rely on that? Why hold on tightly on monetary policy? Rates itself.
Fair enough. Like you said, that's a tool. So you have one tool doesn't mean you should use it all the way. So they're using all the tools they have to make it a balanced system. If they use just the OMOs to mop up the liquidity in the system, that would suck out a lot of funds from their reserves, and so that's not something they want to do. So obviously, use another tool that you have in the box, and like you said, it's good to use multiple tools to achieve your objectives, and I think that's what they're doing, and I think it's working effectively.
It's working effectively. Do you agree with that? Effectively.
It's been very effective. The numbers don't lie. It's 7.8% there, and there's still that increased, or should I say, some downside risk coming from increased liquidity into the system from the AMCON bonds that are retiring at the end of the year, like they've been mentioned, about 2 trillion, I believe. In addition to that, you're going to have, or we expect some level of an increase in fiscal expenditures going forward, government outlays, as a result of the election year that's upon us. And when you have such taking place, you're going to have excess liquidity or an increase in liquidity into the system. So it's prescient to put in the measures in place to sort of check that going forward and make sure we don't see inflation getting out of control.
Okay, let's look at other details in this report where we're seeing full inflation also declining and the core inflation increasing, and where was that mix up, so to speak? Why are we having such disparity?
So
I know the full inflation is a core part of the inflation, the overall inflation outlook. So why are we having the disparity in that?
So you have to realize the inflation, headline inflation includes everything, obviously, and the food inflation index includes a lot of volatile goods, so that fluctuates a lot. And now that we're in the harvest season, so the prices are coming down. But the core index, if you note in our report, we're saying that the core index has actually risen to 7.6%. So it actually shows that even though we are seeing the headline inflation come down, and the core inflation index is going up a little bit, that shows that maybe the CBN still needs to keep a tab on inflation by maintaining their monetary stance. And so so obviously, like I said earlier, the food inflation index is being affected by the fact that we're in harvest season, so there are a lot of products out there and prices are coming down for the food basket. But the core index, which doesn't include the volatile agricultural goods, is going up, or it went up by 0.2% last month.
Okay, let's look at the value of the naira. I know that the central bank recently had to save the naira with some billions of naira because we're seeing the decline in the value compared to other currencies, global market currencies. But in all, do you think that the naira, because I know that's another area that the committee will have to look into at arriving at whatever decision it will take tomorrow, how have we fared in terms of having to maintain a stable naira against other currencies?
Well, I think that's actually the biggest problem the MPC committee probably will have to face when trying to make their decision, because currently our reserves have been going down steadily for the past 3 months, from $48 billion to about $45 or $44 billion currently, and most of it, if you actually evaluate the distribution of that money, like about 20 billion is foreign portfolio investments, and given that recent announcements or signals that the QE tapering would occur soon, you may see a flight of that money out of the sector, and that would leave us at about $25 billion in our reserves. And with that, our cover for imports will be low, and that exposes us to a lot of risk in our economy. So that's something they have to actually manage well, and I think Sanusi and his committee will make the best decision.
We'll get back to this tapering issue because I was mentioning earlier on that a lot of the stock market around the world are responding to the fact that the Federal Reserve may continue to boost the economy, pumping in money. Maybe Chinedu should let us know more about this. How do you think that would impact on the capital market here? I know that we are looking at the MPC meeting, but we know there's always a link between both. Are we going to expect any impact at all on our market when the decision to taper the quantitative easing takes place?
Right.
Do you think there's going to be any impact
There's
at all?
definitely going to be some impact. I mean, back in May, when Bernanke alluded to the fact that they may begin tapering in September, you saw just increases in capital outflows from the capital markets here in Nigeria, and that was seen across a number of frontier markets, developing markets around the world. And this is what's expected to happen when there is that eventual taper. But as a result of the fact that it was expected in September and didn't occur, you now started seeing sort of calming in rates. The U.S. Treasury, 10-year Treasury rate was spiking as a result of was rallying as a result of the announcement. But after not having that event take place, you started seeing a gradual decline in the rates. So going forward, that's definitely a downside risk to the Nigerian market, because if there is such an increase in capital outflows from foreign investors, like the being mentioned earlier on, I think about $20 billion of external reserves are foreign portfolio investments. So if you see that sort of liquidity money leaving the system,
Even the foreign direct investment, a number of companies who have taken position in our capital market, we're looking at the volume of the monies they brought in.
Right.
Are we expecting that to leave when that happens? Do you think it's going to affect that investment?
Affect the investments in the sense that there's a decline in the markets as a result of the exiting of the money. Yes, definitely. That's going to happen. You have such an it's an enormous amount. Relatively in Nigerian terms, when you consider the amount of liquidity we have presently in the system, it's not much. You look at the likes of South Africa, the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, and you have amounts ranging in the billions of dollars on a daily basis, compared to Nigeria, where you have transactions taking place within the range of several millions of dollars. So comparatively, yes, I mean, we definitely suffer from liquidity issues.
Okay. Well, I'd like you gentlemen to hold your thoughts for us. We'll go on a break now.
Sure.
We've been talking to Dubem Ara and Chinedu Ifeonu, both economists from Financial Derivatives Company Limited, and we are previewing the Monetary Policy Committee's decision that will be taking place tomorrow. Of course, all eyes on what Sanusi and his men will say when they finally meet tomorrow. The meeting has actually started today, but the main decision will be taken tomorrow. Presently, we are saying that the NPR at 12%, and the committee had told us severally that there's the need to maintain a tight monetary policy stance in order to contain a lot of factors. All right, we're right back, and we'll continue with this discussion.